So this is my week 2 milestone check-in video thing. Um, and I will admit that it has followed my typical theme of the second week being a little bit more of a confusing flop of problems. And figuring out those problems, or at least brainstorming. So I'll start with the good bits, at least. I got all the blend shapes done for my photogrammetry project. As you can see over there, the blend shapes are all modeled out. Oops. There's about 20-ish of them. And they're driving this guy. The problem is that I did these in ZBrush, following the method that we used in our last class, our last modeling class, but as you can see, they've broken a bit. And I think the solution to that is to just go back to an older save for this iteration. Also, I still need to do a little bit of animation on this because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the problem with these were. But this is pretty much done after I do some simple, make a couple expressions on the man's face, which should take, and put together the textures, which should take 2 hours at most, maybe. Plus I also want to do a blend shapes thing. I'm having an issue also, another big issue I kept running into is I can't rename this, I don't think. I've had issues with renaming or moving this around at all, which is frustrating, but you know, it'll work perfectly fine without if I just go back, don't change the name, don't move these, and just animate this properly without messing with things. The other scene I was working on specifically this week was Dancer. And I am running into an issue with her of just not knowing how to apply animation to her. But as soon as I get that in, she is already, she has this, which I can tweak around and play around with. And she's already bound, and I can tweak the binding on it, the skin weights, which shouldn't take too long since it will just be correctives at that point. And then I just have, then I would just have to render her out and do her textures which she came with textures, which would also just take, the binding would probably take me a class period to do to get looking really nice, since they're just correctives. And then the texturing would be just an hour with any problems that come up. And then it would just be rendered out with the different animations. So that was kind of the goals I had this week. To get this, to get the blend shapes made, and to get a motion capture rig on her. I do want to make other systems on top of her, but if I just get a nice looking motion capture rig done, I'll consider that worth putting that on my reel, and then building on top of after the fact. But yeah. And then the other parts, the getting things to move, those I know how to. I've run into the issues. I've come up with lots of ideas how to fix them. Run into issues with that, and now I have different ideas that will most likely work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But every mistake is a learning opportunity. So that's all for this week.